Hello, hello, and welcome to all of you beautiful souls tuning in today to the Heart of the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Amana, and I'm so happy you're here. On the Heart of the Soul, we remember what it means to be wild women walking upon this earth. We share our stories and honor how they inevitably shift and change over time and depending on who we're talking to. This is a space for story medicine, an opportunity to practice using our voices and the ancient ritual of storytelling. I hope that you receive wisdom as well as deep heart and soul connections as you soak in these stories today. Today is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022, and I'm sitting outside on my in-laws' land north of Spokane, Washington. I just love being outside and hearing the leaves rustle and the wind. And in my own family, we've had some big changes recently. My husband is working in another state right now, and he's going to be there for several weeks. So that means I've been solo parenting without the same support that I'm used to. So that's been a little challenging. And my littles were sick, and then I was sick. And so I still feel like I'm a little bit in a fog as we're healing and preparing to go camping at the Okanagan Family Fair for the next 4 days, which I'm excited for and a little bit stressed, but I love the community feel there and the absence of cell service. So today I have Shenice Peterson with me of Spokane Prenatal Massage. We first met at a networking gathering for birth workers, and from our first conversation, we just connected and flowed, and I felt like we could have kept talking for hours about birth had we had the space and time. So that led me to inviting her here today to be with us and share her stories with you all. So Shenice, I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and tell the people where you are in the world and anything else you feel called to share.
Sure. Hi, my name is Shenice, and first and foremost, I'm a mother to 4 children. My bonus daughter is 13, and then my boys are 5, just turned 5, 2, almost 3, and then 11 months, almost 1. So we've got a lot of birthdays coming up. So we have a very, very busy household. And then on top of that, I own my own small business, Spokane Prenatal Massage. And I specialize in working with pregnant and postpartum women or wherever women are on their journey through motherhood, really. Um, so very, very busy, but very happy to be here.
Yes, yes, welcome. Thank you for being here. I would love to hear, I know we've talked a little bit about this on our own, not recording, but I would love to hear sort of your, as you grew up, did you know you wanted to be a mom? How did you sort of enter motherhood and your first pregnancy, and how did that all come about for you?
So I definitely knew I wanted to be a mom. I always wanted a big family. I'm one of 4 siblings, and so 4 always seemed like the number to me for whatever reason. And kind of hit a point in my life 5 years ago and decided that I think I'm ready to do this. You're never really ready, but it was like I felt that calling, like it's my time. So I went off of birth control, and a couple months later was pregnant with my first kid. And that was like the start of something amazing for me because throughout my entire pregnancy, I was just like constantly researching all these things about being pregnant and birth and labor and how to be a mom. So I really dove into that rabbit hole, so to speak. Um, and my mom has had 4 natural unmedicated births, and my husband's mom has had 2. So I knew right away that that's where I was headed. I knew that I wanted to be as connected as possible to the whole experience. And I got way more than I ever bargained for. My first
Wait,
birth.
first, will you tell us what you know about your own birth before you dive into your births? Like, what do you know about your birth from your mother? You said, it was
Oh,
unmedicated. Do you know anything else about your birth?
I do actually. So I actually was going to be born at home, literally in the house that I have bought now as an adult. I grew up in the house that I own. Yeah, I didn't go very far literally in life, physically in life. Um, and last minute, I don't know exactly the reasoning, but she ended up going to the hospital anyway and just had me. And I know that her mom was kind of old school and like the squat by a tree kind of thing. I don't know how true that is, but it was more like primal than not, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what number child were you in the lineup out of
I'm the
four?
fourth. I'm
You're
the
the
fourth.
fourth. Okay.
My one of my brothers is 6 years older than me. My other brother is 6 years older than him, and then my sister is another year older. So between my sister and I, there's 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How interesting.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So your mom was intending a home birth, but then wound up in the hospital, still unmedicated, but
Yep.
inside the hospital setting.
Yep.
Hmm.
Um,
So then as you're pregnant and you're diving deep into all the things, had you ever like seen a birth or had any of your friends had kids at that point?
so my sister has had one kid, and I did watch my niece be born. That was kind of a crazy thing because I think the entire side of both families was in the room. She was in a hospital setting as well, but it was a full house for sure. And it wasn't like doctors and nurses, it was family.
Emily?
So, and my sister, I just remember her like being in her own little zone and not even really noticing that she's got a full house in front of her. So that was
Yeah.
amazing to watch. But that was the only birth that I had actually seen like in real life.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And so then you are pregnant yourself and growing a little baby in your womb and preparing to for that baby earthside. And yeah, what did that look like for you?
So I chose, and at that point, I hadn't even really like considered home birth. It wasn't even on my radar whether that was like I didn't know it existed. I don't know. It just wasn't really there. But I did choose a midwife hospital
Mm-hmm.
too. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I had the more hands-off approach, but also a lot better relationship with my provider. We really clicked and like we still talk to this day. So it's really amazing. I was with them for all three of my children. Um, and so I had a hospital birth with him. I went into labor at 38 and 6. I
Mm-hmm.
woke up that morning and was having contractions. I was like, oh, I think I'm in labor. Like, cool. This is going to be the day. And I spent all day in labor, actually, and walked around the block and bounced on my ball and ate popsicles because it was in the heat of August. And that night, it was kind of like, okay, things are not really like things are happening, but nothing crazy is happening. And so we decided that because it had been a full day at that point, we were
Mm-hmm.
just going to go and check and make sure that he was okay. Nothing was like quote unquote wrong. And so we went in that evening and just got checked, and they're like, "Nope, baby's fine. Like you're just in early labor." And we're like, "Okay, cool. Like I'm going back home. See you later." Um, Came back home, labored all night. I had 36 hours of back labor. Thank God my husband got to sleep that night because he was going to be in full hip compression mode the next day. And so I want to say it was like 6 a.m. the next day. So 39 weeks on the dot. I woke up and I was like, well, I didn't wake up. I was up all night. Who am I kidding?
Yes.
And
So you've
woke
been
everybody
awake. So you've been awake for 2 nights at that point, or three
up.
nights?
This would have been, yeah, one night at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and so I decided, like, yeah, it's time to go in, you guys. And so we went back to the hospital, and I have my husband, my mom, and then his mom. So essentially, I had my husband who kind of like doesn't really know a whole lot, but knows exactly what I'm there for, and is able to advocate for that. And then I had two built-in doulas. I didn't know that at the time, but looking back, that's exactly what they were. Both of our moms, and went into the hospital, got a room, got settled in. I got to get into the tub like I wanted. super empowering birth. Like I said, it was all back labor. So at that point, I didn't even really know like what contractions felt like. All I knew is that my back was breaking every, 2 minutes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You said it really helped when your husband was pushing on your hips.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing nurse. She was a godsend and showed everybody in the room because they all started to take turns at that point and spend many hours.
Yeah.
Uh, how to just compress those hips to get some relief off my back. So that was a game changer for sure. I never did actually like change the location of the pain at that point. Um, and I knew once I was getting to like transition because I was exhausted. I had been up for more than 24 hours at that point
Mm-hmm.
and was basically passing out between contractions. Like I could feel them, and then it was like I have to rest for 30 seconds or whatever, you know. And I
Yeah,
was like, okay,
it's so incredible those little like micro naps that women in that stage of labor are capable of. Like I remember
yeah,
that happening to myself too. And you're like, never thought I could like nap for just like those moments, but it really like helps and feels good and almost feels like impossible not to.
yeah, totally, yeah. It was primal. Like I said, I couldn't not. That's just what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know how many pushes, not many. It wasn't like, oh, I pushed for 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah. And you were in the water still, or?
Nope, I was back out at that point. I had been on my side on the bed, flipping and flopping and on the ball and like just moving constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And um, came time to push. My midwife showed up, and I want to say it was like a couple pushes. I know it wasn't a whole lot
Yeah.
because I was so tired. I wouldn't have made it very much longer. And that's how you know, like looking back, that's how you know you're so close. And
Yes.
all of a sudden, like I went to lean back and take that little micro nap, like you said, and then boom, I had a baby on my chest. And it was like, okay. My mom's like, wake up, wake up. And I'm like, oh my God, he's here. I did it, like,
Oh,
and then you're just on that post birth high for like for me, it's like a couple weeks. So,
yes.
one night of no sleep turns into many after you have a baby. So
Yes, yes. Did you know he was going to be, did you say he was a boy? Did you know he was going to be a boy ahead of
I did
time?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you remember about his placenta?
Honestly, I don't know that I remember much after like once he was on my chest, it was taking all of that in. Like he's looking at me, I'm looking at him. There's this connection that you never even knew existed in the world. I have a husband and I love him and everything, but you birth a baby and he's placed right here in front of you, and it's like it's nothing. There's no comparison. I can't even think of anything.
Yes.
Um, so taking him all in, and then like just just um like being totally in the moment with him and recognizing what an incredible thing that just happened, and he's healthy and he's like ready to nurse, and it was just beautiful, really so
Mm,
empowering.
yes. Yes. How was nursing for you and him?
Nursing was I struggled with him not knowing though. Not for like the fact that he wouldn't nurse or anything like that, but I think as a first time mom, I was like a clock watcher and didn't really know like what I was doing. I was winging it. And, we never had any issues or anything, but I felt like knowing what I know now after having three boys, things could have been better. I didn't know them while I was in the thick of it. And I nursed him for 3 months until I went back to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's big. And yeah, I feel like it's so common. I mean, for myself too, or even like I took care of like babies, like infants, newborns, and all sorts of babies throughout my whole life. And yet I was still like overtaken by the postpartum like exhaustion and just I had some like anxiety and other things happening for myself. Was there anything surprising for you in the postpartum?
how attached I was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, being a like the first baby, it was like I don't want to go anywhere without him. Um, checking him is it before I go to bed. Is he breathing still in the crib? Like you said, those anxieties that whether or not you label it that, that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just like so in love. I mean, that sounds so cheesy, but yeah, it's just that
But
connection is
it's so true.
so real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you'd planned to go back to work after 3 months. And how did that feel when that time came for you?
Horrible. Horrible. After I had him, so the company that I was working for didn't even have a maternity leave policy in place. I was their like first guinea pig, I so to speak, on creating a policy. And at that point, there was no Washington State FMLA, and
Mm-hmm.
the business wasn't big enough to qualify for like federal leave or anything like that. So I had enough stance at the business, or was high enough up to go, I'm taking 3 months off and I'll see you when I get back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but 3 months is like, it just is
Romance is nothing.
not
Yeah.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really tough. It was that is
And
what set me on motion. I didn't know it at that point either
mm-hmm.
to get to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then what was that transition like for you and for him being separated for more of your time? And yeah, I don't know if there's
It's
anything you
really
want to speak
hard.
to about that.
So I feel incredibly grateful. My mom actually quit one of her jobs that she had, and then we just paid her to be with him full time while we were out of the house. So I had somebody I trusted. He didn't have to leave. Like I didn't have to wake up early, get him ready, get him to daycare, any of those things. I just got up, and if he woke up, great. And if not, I just got ready and left, and my mom was there. So that made it a tad bit easier because I knew who he was with all day. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
to worry about his safety. But it was still hard. Like being out of the house 8, 9, 10 hours a day
Uh-huh.
I always tell people I had kids so that I could hang out with them, not so I could just
Yeah.
like they're cool
Yes.
kids. I want to hang out with them. So
Yes.
it was really hard.
Yeah. And do you continue breastfeeding then and pump at work, or how was that for you?
Yeah, so I attempted the pumping at work thing and it did not go good for me. Whether that was I wasn't producing enough or I couldn't get in the headspace or whatever. Like I didn't
Or your body's not responding to a machine. I mean,
yeah,
our bodies aren't meant to really respond to some plastic suction machine. Like
yeah,
our bodies are physiologically built to respond to our babies. So
yeah.
yeah,
So I maybe did that for a month or two and then I put the pump away and I never got it back out. Even with my subsequent kids. I was like, I'm never doing that again. It
yeah,
wasn't worth it for my own mental just sanity.
yeah.
That was really tough, but I had to come to grips with that, and I knew I would be 10 times happier in my with my other children if I decided that I'll breastfeed as long as I can, and
Yep.
then I'm switching. Like that's it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
ever again. More power to you, but not me.
Yes. Yes. No, I feel you. And yeah, each woman should do what they want to do. And yeah, I didn't pump at all with my daughter either. I was just like, mm-mm. I did with my
Yeah,
son and then not with my daughter.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So then, yeah. Um, if there's anything you want to talk about with him, like between then and when you conceived your next baby, I welcome any stories there, or if you want to start
Oh
with
my
your
gosh.
next little one.
So I filled like at least one full phone with pictures, and then I had to just buy another phone with bigger storage. um, as like one of the main things. I just took so many pictures, and I try and continue to do that. But yeah, just they grow so fast, and it's amazing to be able to look back at those. And I'm so glad that I did because
Mm-hmm.
we can really relive memories that I have forgotten. So yeah, pictures are amazing.
Yes, yes. Did you do things like family photos and stuff like that as well?
No, we have never done family photos. Um, but I took a lot like, the every month picture and then I made photo books because I only had one kid at that point. You have time to do all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
So I have like tons and tons of pictures and photo books of him and those were like Christmas gifts to family and so yeah.
Yes. And then was it like conscious decision to invite another being into your family?
Yeah, I'm a
Or
planner, so all of my kids were planned. Um, and I actually had trouble conceiving after my first. And so I had several early miscarriages
Mhm,
before I got pregnant with my second son.
mhm.
Um, and then
Can you talk a little bit about those if you don't mind?
yeah,
Yeah.
so um, those are really tough because you just don't know like what could have become.
Hmm.
So like grieving grieving the unknown almost really because I've got three boys, maybe one was a girl, I have no idea,
Hmm.
whether that's a blessing in disguise or not. um but yeah, it's a very untalked about like normalcy of life,
Hmm.
miscarriage.
Yeah.
So,
When did other people in your life know you were pregnant at that time, or what was your what sort of choices did you make around telling people or not, or
yeah, my close family knew, which is really who I tell anyway. That's my life kind of revolves around family. So, yeah, they were aware. And um, each time it like, it doesn't get easier. It's still difficult. I did have to have a D&C with one of them.
Mhm.
Um, and then did some testing as to like what's happening and why is this happening over and over again. And nothing was coming up. And
Mhm.
so just having a lot of unknowns is tough.
Yeah, that can make it even harder sometimes, I think, for people too, to like sometimes we choose testing because we want an answer, and sometimes the
Yeah, we want
testing gives us no answers. And so then we're still in the same spot we were before the tests of in the unknowns of
yeah,
the why and having to just be with that and continue forward. And it's not easy.
no, definitely not.
Yeah. Did you feel supported and held in those like, postpartums from your early births?
Yes, because those people that I told are
Hmm.
the type of people to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, we we are very close as a family. Period. Like I said, my mom watches my kids. She still watches my kids every day.
Yes.
Um, so I see her every day. My sister and I are very close now that we're adults, and um, so yeah. Short answer, yes.
Yeah. Good. Good. Is there anything that I know some people will ask me and other people, like what was most helpful to you in those times? Or is there anything that sticks out that felt really, heartfelt and nourishing to you?
So not necessarily like while you're in the thick of it. I've done a lot of personal development over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but knowing what I know now, this is what I would have implemented is really just letting go of the process and enduring what is because that's what it is. You can't change it. It's happening because I really believe it's supposed to be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which can be hard to digest while it's happening, so to
Yeah.
speak. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So then when you did get pregnant with your next son, um, what was that like after having those early losses, early births? Like I know
So
from
that
yeah, like tell me about that for you.
So that's where, anxiety really kicks in, I feel like, because now you finally got him, he's sticking, whatever, he's growing, he's got a heartbeat, and now you're just worried the whole time. So getting past that, and like I said, just trusting the process and trusting that whatever's going to happen is what's supposed to happen
Mm-hmm.
is what I kind of had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, rather than just focus on the worry and, losing a possible another pregnancy, shift that to being grateful for having this baby and carrying this baby and, just trusting that we're going to make it to the end.
Mm-hmm. Did it feel any more like challenging to connect to him with that like different worry that you didn't have in your first?
Um, sort of, because getting attached to whoever or whatever is always, once you're attached, that's where you can get hurt. Um, you have to love to be hurt. So yeah, I would say, yeah, a little bit it
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mm-hmm. And how old was your first son at that time ish?
Had him in 20. He would have been 2.5 ish.
Yeah, when you were pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you chose to return to the same provider that you had that positive experience with the first time, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was again a positive experience for you, it sounds like.
It was that one actually, that birth and labor experience, and even just the end of pregnancy was a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my first pregnancy, I just have easy pregnancies. Like I'm not, I don't get sick. I don't like have a bunch of pain. Like sorry everybody, but I love being pregnant because I didn't have problems like that.
Uh-huh.
But that being said, towards the end of my second pregnancy, I was sick for like 2 or 3 months.
Mm,
Um, with like cold after cold after cold, and then I ended up with the flu, and like it was just really tough being that pregnant and that sick and feeling basically like death. Um, and I ended up having high blood pressure. And so that birth was the exact opposite and not empowering because I ended up having a C-section with him.
yeah. So, can you like start me from the beginning of his birth? Like, did you go into labor
No,
or
so
yeah,
uh,
tell me how that unfolded.
I ended up going to be seen because I literally just felt like I couldn't move. I was like coughing. I hadn't been able to eat. Like all of the things that obviously you should be doing while you're pregnant. Um, and so I went in to just like get checked up and like, what can you do? What can you give me? Like, and almost, I was about 37 weeks. So you're kind of at that I'm done stage anyway, just in pregnancy in general.
Yeah.
And then you throw the flu on top of it. Um, and that's when they decided that I had high blood pressure. And it was really just kind of a cascade of events from that point
Mm-hmm.
because being induced or having a C-section was the last thing on my mind.
Right.
Even though I was like, I'm ready, like I have to get this baby out so that I can heal because I'm not caring for my other kid. Like this was really,
Mm-hmm.
really rough and just trying on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is how that happened.
But
uh,
when it was like unfolding, did it feel like totally out of your control? Did you feel like you were still given, I don't know, like informed consent? Did you have choice or how was that
I
for
did,
you?
but I also felt like I was up against a wall because I truly felt that if I didn't like give birth, that I was never gonna get over whatever I was dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know I had the flu at that point until I was in the hospital, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how long I had the flu. I just knew that I had been sick on and off for months,
Mm,
and I was ready to be done with it.
yeah.
Um, so yes, I had informed consent. Yes, I agreed to it. All of those things. My midwife was with me through the whole process, thank God. Um, But it's so looking back on that though, I would have changed it 100% because I felt whatever the exact opposite of empowering is.
Yeah,
It was not,
what would you do differently if you, I know you can't go back, but like
yeah,
but you just
yeah.
said that if you could, you would. So
If
tell me what you would do.
I would have just never went to the hospital. Would have just kept bearing through that sickness and,
Mm-hmm.
laying in bed and having family help with the other kid and just waited because eventually, he's going to come out.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
they're going to come out. So, yeah, being
yeah.
more patient, trusting that process, like I was speaking of before.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's hard to trust it when you're in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so then he was born, and then you had him on the outside. And how was that? How was he, and how were you, and how was the surgery for you?
Surgery went well. Like I said, though, thank God my midwife still got to be with me because she took over camera pictures, which I didn't even know like was a thing, and I didn't know I was gonna get that. And now that I have it, I'm so grateful to like be able to look back on those, which allowed my husband to focus on me, which I
Mm-hmm.
needed because that's not where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, so it was still amazing in the sense that my son came out and they show him to you and he had really darker skin and like a full head of dark hair. And my husband and I were both like, whose kid is that? And so we have this like funny memory as soon as he's born of just like, oh, who is that? Good thing we literally just watched him come out of me because we'd have been like, that's not ours. Our first one is fair skinned and had no hair, but I mean he's super, super blonde.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have that funny moment as soon as he's born, which is great. Um, he gets checked out, he's totally fine. He's 37 and some change weeks, but absolutely totally fine, totally healthy. Still gets to come onto my chest afterwards. Um, still getting to have that connection. I didn't feel like it was as deep, probably because I was pumped full of drugs, but um, yeah,
Yeah, the drugs, yeah, definitely influence the natural cascade of, flow of
as,
hormones. So that makes sense that it would feel
yeah,
different. Yeah.
yeah. There's other things along his journey though that were so much easier, like breastfeeding, you
Yes.
know.
Okay. So take me there.
So it's my second kid. I'm not watching that clock. Like, I don't care which boob he's on. I don't care how long he's on. Like, all
Yes.
of those things that I was so worried about with my first. It's just like,
Yes.
oh, he's crying. Give him here, Oh, he's
Yes.
hungry. Like, all the things. He's tired. Here, I'll help. Like, it was so much easier in that sense that I felt like I've been here before. I've done this
Hmm.
before. This is going to be so much better.
Yeah, you
And
felt
he was,
more comfortable in the role.
oh, so comfortable. He
Hmm.
was my little boy for sure. So I
Yeah.
felt really that. Yeah.
Good. And how was like the scar and incision, and what was that healing like for you?
So I kind of pride myself on having a really high pain tolerance or being able to work through it or whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
Um, but that was different because I felt so guarded that you hunch and your shoulders are rounded because you feel like if you stand up straight, your whole everything's just going to tear apart, and you're not supposed to lift anything. Well, I came home to my 2-year-old and he wants mommy to take him to bed and pick him up and put him in his crib, and so I definitely did things I wasn't supposed to do. But healing is fine. I don't have any pain. I don't have any like numbness from it. She
Hmm.
sewed me up great. My scar looks great. So I don't have like any emotional trauma tied to it now. So
Yeah.
it's healed nicely, both physically and emotionally.
Good. And how about his postpartum? did you have people feeding you and waiting on you and,
Oh
helping
yeah.
with your older son and things like that?
Yeah. Both of our parents and sisters and everybody else, they love to just dote on the babies. So that part of postpartum is really great because, like you said, everybody wants to feed you and, help you take care of things. And so very supported in that way.
Wonderful. Yeah, so many people are really isolated in their postpartum, so it's
Yeah.
really wonderful to hear that that was not your experience.
Yeah. And I felt better, like literally as soon as he was out, I didn't feel sick anymore. So
Yeah.
that was so good. I didn't have
Uh-huh.
the flu afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And yeah, then what was it like having two for you?
Two was okay. So with my first, we would go on like weekend morning dates, like Target runs, all those fun things. Not even necessarily to buy anything, but just he's up at the crack of dawn, like we might as well go do something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so now we had another one in tow, and so we just put him in the car with us and took him. Sometimes we had to wait till he was awake and feed him. And so teaching my first to have a little bit of patience with him and with me
Yeah.
was tough, but he absolutely loved him. I don't even know how many pictures of him holding him on the couch and, after when I was done breastfeeding, feeding him a bottle, just all the things of being an amazing big brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
Mm. Um, and then yeah, tell me what happens next in your storyline.
So, like I said, when I went back to work with my first, it set things in motion that I didn't know were in motion yet.
Yes.
And when I went back to work after my second, which I got 16 weeks off at that point because the state had kicked in their paid leave, which was amazing. Um, so when I went back after him, I knew for sure that something had to change because now I really wanted to be home more
Mm-hmm.
and I time with them. Um, yeah, I just needed that flexibility to be able to, if I want to take the whole day off and go run around and go to the park and whatever it is, then I
Mm-hmm.
can. So
Yeah, and how did the 16 weeks feel? Did that feel different than the 3 months, or did it feel similar? Yeah.
it didn't feel like, oh, I got an extra 4 weeks. And especially because I had just had major surgery. So
Yeah.
I have this tendency to take on a house project every time I have a kid. So I always like paint the kitchen or whatever it is. And so I did that, but like it didn't feel any longer than the first.
Yeah.
It's never long enough, I don't feel like. So,
No. No.
um, and so I knew after I went back after my second that I had to do something different.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
what were you doing at that point? The work, what kind of work were you doing then?
I was a warehouse manager for a fastener company.
Okay.
So I had a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with good people and it just wasn't fulfilling anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was supposed to be doing something bigger and better and like putting myself out in this world for a greater purpose, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, and it really started to hit me after that I have to make a change. I don't know what it is, but I have to. And so I really started looking into like small business opportunities
Mm.
because I figured my husband owns his own small business, and I figured what better way to have the flexibility that I'm desiring than just start my own business, which
Yes.
might seem like intuitive. If you run a business, it's a lot of work, but
Yes.
I knew that was my calling. It just kept pulling me and pulling me, and so I started researching different small business ideas that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
And, massage therapy kept coming up. And I knew from my first pregnancy that we have a lack of that in Spokane for pregnant women. And all of the things just kind of started lining up that, oh, I could go back to school for this. Oh, we have some great schools in town that offer this. And I'll specialize in it because I love being pregnant and I love, the whole just thought of birth and how empowering it can be because I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced basically both ends of the spectrum at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that's what I wanted to do at that point. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the birth. That's why I'm going there for the
Yeah.
next child.
Yeah.
So it took several weeks or months of talking about it and coming up with a little bit of a game plan before I decided to quit my job and go back to school,
Uh-huh.
which I did. And while I was in school, I was deciding, do I want to have I told you I'm a planner, so I'm like, okay, we got to plan this next baby. um, do I want to be pregnant while I'm in school and try and like have this baby when I graduate? Or do I want to go through school, graduate, and then try and start a business and have a baby? And that didn't sound very good to me. So I decided that I would try and line birth and labor up with my graduation date and count backwards and try and conceive around this time of the year.
Okay.
And it all lined out. So I
Wow.
knew everything I was doing at that point was like, yeah, I'm going somewhere here. So I went through massage school pregnant and I graduated and basically simultaneously gave birth to my third son.
Wow.
So that pregnancy was easy because I was getting massages every week. It was amazing.
So good.
Again, I wasn't sick or anything like that. The hardest part is having two other kids at home because
Mm-hmm.
kids are work, you know. You don't just get to come home and like sit on the couch and relax for the rest of the evening.
No.
You you run around and play whatever and cook dinner and get bed and all the things. So um, having the two kids while pregnant with the third was different for sure, but also super fun because now I had two boys that were extremely excited to meet their little brother and
Mm,
had nicknames for him already and just all of the things.
yeah.
um, I also had done, like I said, a lot of self-development over the last 2 years through school and then through some extracurricular stuff that I did, like with hypnotherapy and a ton of mindset work.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Tell me more
so
about, yeah, like what did that, how do you feel that shifted or changed within you or yourself?
like my mindset.
Just, yeah, the work that you did and how do you feel, yeah, what sort of impact that had
Yeah,
on your being and on your life?
huge impacts, like short story, huge impacts. Um, so I had my very first, my first was very empowering. My second was not. It was very hard. Um, and so I knew going into into my third pregnancy, that I was going to redeem myself and essentially like get my power back and have this amazing, beautiful birth. And through the work that I had done, rather than focused on like, oh my gosh, what if I have another C-section and all these things, like that was so far from my mind. It wasn't even a possibility. Like, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
happening. I am
Mm-hmm.
100% focused on this is what I want. This is what I'm going for. And that's where I'm going to put my attention because it's so much easier to focus on what you want than what you don't want.
Yeah.
And it's so much just healthier for your heart, your mind, your body to
Mm-hmm.
focus on what you want in life. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
And did the people in your life support you with that? Was there anyone in your life that was like fearful about, a vaginal birth after cesarean or the people you
mm,
surrounded yourself with also able to support you in that?
yeah, I don't think anybody, I don't recall anybody being like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." Mainly because they know me, and if I put my mind to something,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. I was gonna have the feedback, whether you approved of it or not. That's what I'm going
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But no, my family was super supportive. So, like I said, that's just in my nature.
Yes.
So, yeah. Where were we going?
So you were just kind of leading up to the fact that you were planning to have that you were like, I'm gonna have this redemptive birth, and that you were focusing on the birth that you wanted and not the possibility that you might have a C-section. You were fully
Yeah.
like invested and putting your energy towards the birth that you were calling in and desiring for yourself and your son.
Yeah. Um, so I knew that I was like 2-ish weeks from graduating school. I'm kind of at that, I'm basically done with school. I've done a bunch of extra work to where whenever I go into labor is fine. They're not going to make me like come back and do anything. I've completed all of my
Yeah,
requirements.
great.
And so it's go time. There's no stress, there's no worry. I have nothing to like prepare. The car seat's in the car, the bag is packed, like all of the things. And I just knew that it was an okay time. Like I'm ready. We're ready. The world is ready.
Mm-hmm.
So the day prior, I had my first son at 39 weeks is when I spontaneously had him. And
Mm-hmm.
so, okay, 39 weeks, that's perfect. Like, let's shoot for that. And so the day before I went into labor, I did some hypnotherapy about just letting my body release and trusting that my body is made for this and that my baby is made for this. We're one and the same at this point, and it's okay to let go and allow this to happen. Um, so I did that the day prior, and then that evening I also we had a little dance party. We like to dance at my house. So we had the keyboard rolling and the music was playing, and I'm 39 weeks pregnant, just like having a good old time with my kids. And I mean, stress free, not a worry in the world. Nothing was gonna like get me down. And I put the kids to bed. I took a really hot shower that night. Um, and just like super relaxed. And I actually went to bed early, which I never do. Once I get the kids in bed, I'm like, oh, can relax for the day. Like that's my one time.
Yeah.
And I did. I took a hot shower, which I don't usually shower at night, and I went to bed early. And looking back, it's like, well, of course you did, because I woke up about 2:30 in the morning, having contractions, and I was like, oh, okay. And they were not in my back. I was like, this is new. Like, okay, I've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I got up out of bed and I went pee and I tried to go lay back down and tossing and turning. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working. So I got back up and I'm like, okay, I should probably time these. And so I downloaded a timer because I hadn't done that yet and just started timing them on this app. And after I timed like 3 or 4, the app told me I needed to go to the hospital. And I was like, I'm like, okay, they're 2 minutes apart, but like I'm talking, I'm walking. This isn't crazy intense. And so I call my mom and I'm like, hey, like contractions are 2 minutes apart. She's like, did you wake Sean up yet? Who is my husband? And I said, no, he's sleeping. She's like, you should probably get him up. like, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to wake him up yet. And I needed to call my sister. My sister was going to come stay with the sleeping kids so we could all go together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called the midwives and let them know that, yeah, my contractions are 2 minutes apart. And they're like, oh, are you on your way? I'm like, no, like I'm just waiting on my sitter to get here. I'm totally just chill. Like, I can feel them, but I'm just riding them. And they're like,
Yeah.
they literally were not painful. They were
Sounds
just
like you
there.
had a good groove with them, and
Oh my
yeah.
God, yeah, totally. So I call my sister. I wake her up, tell her to get her butt down here. Wake my husband up. He he did not go to bed early that night. He stayed up late. So he was like, are you
Are you
what? And I'm like,
sure?
he's like, okay, like she knows it's time, it's time. So he got right up, got ready to go. And so I had called L&D at that point and just was like, hey, I want to be coming in soon. And she's like, well, are you on your way? And I'm like, no, like I'm waiting for my sitter to get here. And she said, well, if you start feeling the urge to push on your way here, you need to call 911 because you're not going to make it. And I'm like, okay, sure, we're going to make it. This is fine. This is not that intense. And so my sister gets here. So we all load in my car and I got my playlist rolling because I've got the playlist this time. I'm into this. Got some really cool music I wanted to listen to.
Yes.
And so we're heading downtown, and I got to listen to one song on my whole playlist, which was good because it was my favorite song. There's
Do
nobody
you
out.
remember? Do you remember what song it was?
Oh yeah, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a really there's one word and it's breathe, and then it's kind of like a EDM mixed with like a funky beat. Like it's just this super chill kind of song.
Yeah, but exactly what you wanted and needed. That's so good. Yeah.
And we ran one red light on the way down there because I could tell that things were picking up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so we got to, it was like 4:50 in the morning at this point, and so we had to go in through the emergency room, which I don't know if you've ever been to Sacred Heart emergency room in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I worked
It's
there
not
for a while.
okay. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
great place. I didn't want to have a baby in the
No,
emergency.
no, you don't want to have a baby in the emergency room. I did witness one there, but yeah, that's not an ideal place to birth.
Yeah. So we get checked in, and she's like, okay, transport will be here soon. And I'm like, okay, like how
How
soon?
soon?
So at this point, I'm like, I got the rock going. I'm leaning on my husband. I've got my arms over his shoulders. And finally, like a couple minutes went by, and I told my mom, I said, you need to go tell her that I need that wheelchair now because I'm not having a baby here. Like, there's people sleeping next, like 5 feet from me on the floor. I'm like, get that wheelchair down here. So he finally shows up, and we go up to the labor floor, and you got to check in and fill out paperwork. And at one point, I passed the clipboard to my husband during a contraction, and he wrote like my name, and I took it back because we were never going to get checked in. Finished filling that out, and they sent me to the waiting room, and I was like, oh, okay. And at this point, I'm like we're close. We're about to have this baby.
Yeah, you could
And
feel it.
get out of the wheelchair, and I get on a different chair, like on my hands and knees, and I'm now leaned over this chair, and they come get me, and um, we go. I'm the only person there. I don't know why they sent me there, but um, we're heading back to triage, and she says, "Oh, do you need to use the restroom?" And I'm like, "Yeah, might as well." So I go to use the restroom, and when I wiped, I saw blood, and I was like, "Oh, blood!" And then I was like, "Oh, that's my bloody show." And I didn't experience that with either of them, so I was like, "Ooh, like exciting." And
Yeah.
so I walked out of the bathroom, and my water broke, and it wasn't like it's a trickle. It's like, oh, it did my water break. I was like, whoa, my water broke.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
So I just shouted to the lady. I said, he's coming. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, my water just broke. And so she gets me over into the room, and they want to check you and do all the things. And I'm like, okay. I'm getting my pants off and my shoes off and like telling Sean to get this to my mom because now it's got blood all over it, it needs washed. And so they decide, oh, she's complete. And I was like, yeah, I already told you that. Like, he's coming. My water just broke. He's there. Excuse me. And so she yells it that, she's fully dilated. And so now all of the nurses are coming in, and they must have been like tired of just hanging out because they came running, and all of a sudden, like everybody's talking, and they're trying to rush me back to this room and ask me a bunch of questions. And I'm still just like riding those contractions. Nothing about it is painful at this point. I just know that it's happening.
Yeah.
It's I'm so close. Like I just knew it. And I'm like, okay, we'll get to this other room. And they switched me to the other bed in the room. And at that point, I'd take all my clothes off because that's how I birth. And I wanted baby right on my chest, like no obstructions, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were trying to guide me to push, and I was like, I pushed on the first one, and then I stopped because I was like, no, that's not the contraction. And they were like, okay, like just do what feels right, basically. I was like, yeah, I know, I got this. And the next one, I could feel like his head come out. I was like, cool. And the next one, I barely like the contraction didn't really end. It just like intensified.
Uh-huh.
And then he just came flying out.
Oh,
I was so in tune with my body that I felt my sacrum flex back and out of the way. Um,
wow.
which was just like as it was and then like literally just baby came out and I was like, whoa, mind blown. Like that was incredible. And then I have baby on my chest and like I'm back on that post-birth high already. And I'm like, yes. And all these people are like trying to poke me still. And I'm like, stop. Like I've already got the baby out. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Um, but it was amazing. Like I never got my birth plan out, but they had enough common sense at that point to realize that I kind of knew what I was doing going in. And so they
Mm-hmm.
they asked questions before they did things like I knew that, yeah, I do want informed consent, and no, you don't need to do that to him, and all of those other kind of things that
Yeah.
you don't really just go around. So it was absolutely incredible. My midwives did not make it.
Mm.
I was also had an OB on my team because it was a VBAC at that point. He
Yeah.
didn't make it. Just some random OB who happened to be in the hospital showed up, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey." He's like, "Let's have a baby." I was like, "Okay, cool. Like, let's do it." He happened to be incredible. He was an absolute pleasure to have him. But yeah, I birthed that baby. It was
Yes.
amazing,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
The birth that you were preparing for and you did it.
Yeah, like looking back at that, I was like, whoa, like I almost just had him on my living room floor, and I didn't even really like I knew it, but I didn't know it. I mean, we were only there for not very many minutes at the hospital period before I had this child. And then I was like, can we go home? They're like, no. So at that point, I was like, man, maybe we should have had him at home. So, but it was incredible. Totally
Yeah.
empowering. Had
Yes.
my power back. It was
Yes.
everything I wanted it to be. So,
Yeah. Do you remember anything about his placenta?
I guess not. Like, apparently, that's not. I know that they asked me about, delayed clamping and things like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
Uh, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I just had a flashback from my first birth. I do remember his, because I was like, whoa, that's like not what I expected it to look like. It's just
Yeah.
like a big piece of meat or something.
Yeah.
That's really what I remember. Um,
Uh,
my third, I don't think so. I think I was just like so amazed with what I had just done and like how in tuned with it I was, and just to
mm-hmm.
feel my sacrum like, this giant bone at the end of your spine basically flex as far as it did out of the way. It was just
Wow.
totally
Your
amazing.
sound just changed. I don't know if something popped. Your sound just totally changed.
Can you hear me now?
I can, but it's strange. Like, not like I was hearing you before.
I don't have anything different on my
Huh.
end.
That's so bizarre. Okay.
How about now?
It still
Still better?
sound, yeah, still just a shift, but I think
I don't know. Nothing changed. I'm
yeah,
not on Wednesday or anything.
I think it'll be okay.
Okay.
It'll just sound different, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that is so amazing. And yes, it sounds like I mean, of course you could have birthed this baby in your living room. You didn't need any of those people to birth him.
No, I didn't. It was awesome.
Yeah. And then what you said you wanted to kind of go home right away, but they were telling you you had to stay. Not that you have to stay, but they, make it hard for you to leave.
It had been like 10 minutes. So I was like, can we go? We came, we did it, like, we're out of here. But also, I know what it's like to be at home with a newborn and other children. So I reframed it instead of like, oh, I don't want to stay here. It was like, okay, I get to stay here and rest for a day, basically.
Yeah.
And that was a lot easier to digest than I have to stay here or whatever. It was, I'm supposed to be resting right now, and that's what I'll do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you did go home, what was that like? And what was, his breastfeeding? And then you're a mom of, well, you have four, but three little boys. And yeah.
So we were home. We came home on Halloween Day. So we had big plans for the day already. I knew I had to get back home for that. And the boys and our dog at the time were just like absolutely in love with the baby. They still are. It's so sweet. They kind of fight over whose baby it is. It's not mine anymore. It's theirs. It's one of theirs, depending on who's in charge for the day. But yeah, like I said, they got nicknames and they fought over who got to hold him first or who got to do this first. And just amazing to see them like step into that role of now they're both big brothers, and just so cool to watch. Breastfeeding was great. This is my biggest baby yet. I can't believe I just have big boys. They're amazing.
When you say big, what weight are you speaking?
So not even necessarily like heavy. They're
Okay.
extremely. So my first was like tall and skinny for a long time. He still is tall and skinny, but he's very proportionate.
Yeah.
He's like upper 90s percentile for weight to height. My second seemed shorter and chunkier, but now he's just like tall and stocky, also upper 90s percentile for weight and height. And my third seems tall and like not chunky, just proportionate, but very tall.
Yeah.
And he is not even on the chart. He's just up there making his own line, like doing his own thing. And I'm like, that, like, love it.
Yes.
So they're just big boys. But yeah, Josh is very proportionate, which is great. Like, not concerned about it.
And tell me what their ages are now, present time.
11 months, a little over 2.5, and just turned 5.
Okay. And so your last little one, you're now a licensed massage therapist and you're starting your own business. And so then, yeah, what did that postpartum look like? And when did you choose to go back to work? And how was that for you? And yeah.
So I gave myself 4 months. Like we discussed, is that a long time? No, but also I've been out of work at that point for like a year and a half. So, and I was just so excited to start this business because I knew it was a calling, is what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be like helping other women and spreading my message and my journey and empowering women to have these births and like be the type of mom they want to be. So I gave myself 4 months, still a very short 4 months, breastfed him the whole time. It was wonderful. Especially the third time. Now I'm like super chill, It's my third kid. Walking my park. And, so I went back to work after 4 months. I literally opened my doors March 1st of this year, 2022, and have been hitting the ground running ever since.
Yeah. And how is it going and how is it feeling to serve women in this way? And tell me a little bit more about it.
It is beyond my imagination. Like, it gives me so much more. So I knew I was going to be happy doing this. Like, I'm going to be fulfilled. It feels right. And I wouldn't have been able to like gauge just how good it feels right now. And I've only been at it 7-ish months, and have helped, a couple hundred women at this point. And my massage practice is not walk in and get on the table. It's a sit down similar to this, and we have a conversation, and I get to know you. And if this isn't your first child, I get to know how your first or whatever number of births went for you, whether there's trauma associated with that. If this is your first baby, did you struggle with fertility issues? There's such a deeper connection than I anticipated. I absolutely love it. It's what I feel for me like sets me apart. I'm not just gonna throw you on the table, so to speak. I want to have that connection with you and basically share as much wisdom and knowledge as I can about tips for pain relief and things like that I've learned along my journey, but then also to share resources if there is past birth trauma, or help relieve anxiety about whatever fears are coming up for that individual, regardless of if it's their first baby or their sixth baby. So really just meeting everybody where they're at. It's an incredible feeling to be able to serve so many people and also still have that life on the backside. That was exactly the reason I started this, which is more time with my kids, more flexibility with them. I was able to take today off and go get my own massage this morning, and now I'm here doing this podcast with you. And that's because I'm in control and I have the power to do so. And it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Yes, I love that. And it is so important for women like in pregnancy and in postpartum when they're like receiving care like you offer, like through massage. Like I feel like it's so important that like when I spoke to you about it and the way that I could tell that you held that space for women, that it wasn't just like come in and do the massage, that it's more of an experience and connection and relation, and even you describing that, when women come in postpartum with their little babies, that help to facilitate that and, create a space where that's okay for them to have baby with them during the massage and support them through that experience as well. And I think that is so needed. And so I, absolutely send all the women that I, work with and offer and share with them the work that you do, and that I know that is just exactly what women need. And I'm so glad that you're in our community offering that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, postpartum, it's also a space to come and debrief. Not that I'm a counselor in any sense of the capacity, but more of as a mom and as somebody who's been through, like I said, both experiences now, having 2 vaginal births and a cesarian, being able to come in and just openly discuss your experience with somebody who's not judging you, who's not, placing any blame or guilt or whatever, and simply just listening and offering compassionate support is huge in the postpartum phase. And you can tell that when they come in, and just like I light up when I tell my birth stories, because it's amazing. It's part of who you are now. So when people come in and share their birth stories with me, I feel honored, first of all, to be a part of it in any capacity. And then just feel like you can see on their face and in their energy what that experience meant to them. And being able to share that with somebody else, I think is really, really huge. Emotionally, mentally, all of those things in that postpartum phase.
Yes, absolutely. For women that might be listening that are local here to the area, please tell them, more about where they can find you and, website or social media or anything else like that.
Yeah, my website is SpokanePrenatалMassage.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Spokane Prenatal Massage. So that's where you can find me. I'd love to see you and support you as well.
And where are you practicing from right now?
My office is just off of Argonne, just south of the freeway.
Cool. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we close?
Um, yes, I want to share a tip. I knew there was something. Okay,
Yeah.
I did not make this up, but I saw it somewhere recently, like in the last month, and I use it daily. I told you I have three young boys, and they're absolutely wild, which is amazing. So, I don't know where exactly this came from or what the origin is, but when something chaotic is happening in your life, in your house, with your kids, with whoever, maybe you're driving to work, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Place your hand on your heart and just tell yourself that this is really difficult right now, or this is really frustrating right now, or whatever the word is for you, but you got this. Like, remind yourself, like, I got this, I can do this. You
Mhm.
know, this is just, it's right now. This is not, it's not going to last forever. So when my kids are bickering or they don't want to go to bed or whatever it is, I just take a deep breath and tell myself, this is really hard right now, but I'm going to get through this. I got this. It's changed my life.
Yes, yes, yes. What a beautiful practice and reminder. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Mm. Well, thank you to everyone who has tuned in today. If you love the podcast, I would be so grateful if you choose to subscribe, rate, review, or share the show. If you feel aligned with me and feel called to dive deeper together, I offer virtual and in-person sistership support to women locally and all over the world. To learn more, you can look at my website, birthingnova.love. You can book a free clarity call, and I would love to connect with you. And until next time, be brave, be bold, be love, be you.